For this presentation, we've got Claire Warburton, Deputy Director at Natural England, who's going to be going through the slides that Natural England delivered at the Nature Recovery Toolkit event on why Natural England is supporting the Nature Recovery Toolkit. So I'm going to share slides now, and over to you, Claire. Let's just get those up, and hopefully they should be on full screen.
That's great. Thanks, Krista. That's really helpful. So yeah, I'm Claire Warburton from Natural England. I'm the Deputy Director for Sustainable Development in Natural England, and I'm going to be talking through a few key areas. If you could move on to the next slide, Krista, that would be great. Thank you. And the next one, please. Thank you.
Okay.
Super, thanks. So I'm going to be covering why the toolkit is important for Natural England, and particularly thinking about how it is can support local authorities in taking forward the agenda around nature recovery, how the toolkit and local nature recovery strategies can support each other, and how Natural England can support delivery using things like data, tools, metrics that we've been developing, how we're working in partnership, and how we are integrating policies and funding to support the delivery of nature recovery and working with local authorities in that way. So next slide, please. Just a little bit of background. Natural England is government's advisor on the natural environment. So we have a statutory function around the nature conservation, particularly the restoration of nature, and the Nature Recovery Network is one of our key delivery priorities. So our mission is to build partnerships for nature's recovery. And within that Nature Recovery Network, that's really about that kind of national network of wildlife-rich places that benefit people and wildlife, that connect across countryside, urban areas, coasts, and help us to move beyond isolated areas of nature conservation to really restoring nature at scale. And in doing so, then helping to tackle the crisis we're facing around biodiversity loss, climate change, and public health. So to do that, we need to work with a range of partners to draw on policy levers and legislative measures, and critically really ensure that we are able to direct funding and finance towards that goal. So I'll come on to that a little bit later. Next slide, please. So why is Natural England supporting the toolkit? Well, we think that local authorities really have a vital role to play in making nature recovery happen, and we want to support them to do that. And the PAS toolkit has really been designed to walk local authorities along that path, starting to think through all of the things that you can do, each of the services that you offer, and identify changes that could be made to deliver more nature, and the actions that will help to make that happen. And this slide just shows some of the amazing projects that are happening for nature recovery in Manchester and the Northwest over recent years. So we've got Mayfield Park, top left. We've got Wigan Flashes, NNR, top right. We've got Castlefield Viaduct right in the centre of Manchester, bottom left. And we've got the Gorton Sponge Community Park, bottom right. Some really exciting projects that have happened across Manchester, the Northwest, and actually we think that there are opportunities to do more of this at a bigger scale, and to really attract the finance to help that to happen. We know that local authorities are facing real challenges at the moment, and we know that nature really needs to help you to deliver your corporate priorities. So that's really where we're pitching this kind of toolkit. Next slide, please. So this just picks up on, why nature is important. The Desk Up to Review headline was that our economies, livelihoods, well-being all depend on our most precious asset, and that is nature. But we know nature's not only important for itself, but also for helping us to live a healthier, more resilient places, helping us to adapt to climate change, leading to healthier, more resilient people and a healthier, more resilient economy. Helping to make places that people want to live and work in, and that are attractive to businesses as places to invest, not only nationally, but also globally, putting towns and cities on that sort of global investment, positioning them in that kind of global investment place. And there are lots of statistics around that, in terms of ones that are particularly hard hitting for me are that the stock of UK natural capital that we're currently able to value, we can't value it all, but we're currently able to value, is estimated at around 1.2 trillion pounds. And so that makes nature a significant contributor to the economy. So if we move on to the next slide, please. I'm not going to go into this in detail, but one of the most significant mechanisms for supporting nature recovery is the Environment Act, which set out targets, plans, policies for improving the natural environment. And in 2023, the Environmental Improvement Plan was published, and that really sets out these EIP goals and provides a delivery plan for setting out what the UK will do to improve the environment within a generation. Next slide, please, Krista. Thank you. And the Environment Act sets out a number of duties on local authorities. I think many of you will be familiar with these, but duties for local authorities to conserve and enhance biodiversity, report on their actions under the biodiversity duty, responsible authorities appointed to lead on local nature recovery strategies, with supporting authorities providing support in that space. That duty to comply and to have regard for local nature recovery strategies in local planning policy and decisions, and then biodiversity net gain as a requirement for all Town and Country Planning Act development. So if you move on to the next slide, please, Krista. This just starting to introduce really then how can the toolkit help local authorities meet those duties and deliver local nature recovery strategies. So next slide. Really this relationship with LNRSs and the nature recovery toolkit is important. So LNRSs really provide the process to bring local partners together to agree priorities for nature recovery and propose actions where they will provide the best outcomes really for the environment. And they are spatial plans for nature covering the whole of England. So the toolkit then helps to sort of translate that into council priorities. So how can council use the land that they hold or the services that they deliver, and how can nature really enable those to happen and find quick wins for those to be made? So, practical ways of building nature into procurement of products and services, maintenance of assets, delivery of corporate commitments, and things like, how it could, feature in highways maintenance, or how nature can help to deliver mitigation of flood risk. All of those can help to feed into and inform local nature recovery strategy priorities, and also help to inform council services and how those are delivered. So when done well, the toolkit will support the goal of local nature recovery strategies by widening the group of people that are talking and thinking about nature, and really start to embed that in business as usual activities and mainstreaming nature and nature-based solutions. You move on to the next slide, please, Krista. Again, I'm not going to go into too much detail on this, but this just sets out, exactly what LNRSs will do, and that they will help to identify existing nature, potential nature, and priorities for restoration and creation of nature through those responsible bodies. So next slide, please. And LNRSs can help to deliver multiple environmental improvement plan goals for habitats, for species, for health and well-being, for water quality and availability, and for climate change. So helping to deliver net zero targets, helping to deliver flood risk management, helping to deliver new parks and green spaces that will help everyone to have access to green space within 15 minutes walk from home, for example. So really helping to deliver some of those key areas that could be of interest to local authorities. So if you go on to the next slide, just sets out a few of the sort of timelines that responsible authorities will be working towards in the publication of their LNRSs by spring 2025, and also seeking input from supporting authorities for those. At the same time, Biodiversity Net Gain has just been launched, and local authorities will need to progress that, and the biodiversity duty ready for its first report in January 2026. So really we want to see local authorities, councils, local authorities using LNRSs to develop a pipeline of investable nature recovery projects at scale that can attract green finance. So we're really seeing LNRSs as a means to attracting a pipeline of investable projects that can attract green finance at scale, and the toolkit can help to identify actions that could help to deliver in that way and attract new funding. So next slide is just focuses on how Natural England can support that delivery. So what can Natural England do to support you in these roles? So we've got new spatial tools, and I'll come on to that in a moment. We want to work in strong partnership, and that's local authorities are a key part of that. And we want to, as I say, sort of bring that integration of policies and funding streams to really deliver a strong investment mechanisms into the nature recovery network. So the next slide just picks up on some of the tools, data and metrics and guidance that can help you and to make sense of this. The tricky thing is deciding, kind of what tool to use and when. So I'm going to run through a couple of the two tools that I think are, really, really key to this. But, you might want to kind of unpack some of these tools when you've got a bit more time. So next slide, this is the kind of example of an issue that you might be facing, thinking about how to mitigate and adapt to climate change. We know we're going to be facing wetter winters, more intense periods of rainfall, and how can we use nature-based solutions to really help to kind of tackle that kind of issue. So I'm going to talk through a couple of the tools that you could, incorporate, apply to that kind of issue. So the first tool is, if you can go on to the next slide, Krista, is the LNRS sort of data viewer tool. And that includes sort of sections that are relevant to some of the requirements around sort of LNRS and are referred to in the Environment Act sections 106. So you can this LNRS data viewer allows you to switch data layers on and off and zoom into key areas of interest. You can also switch between features. So the two screenshots here on the slide sort of illustrate this, showing the panel with information on different features. So it shows information on area that is both ancient woodland and a special area of conservation. So you can start to understand, what those key nature conservation sites are in your local area. And you can download, there's an opportunity to sort of data download page that allows you to download those data sets that you've selected, and you can download LNRS area boundaries, for example. And you can also, there's also information on links to other selected websites that could provide useful information. So that's the LNRS data viewer. And then if you go on to the next slide, we've also got a really helpful green infrastructure mapping database that starts to look at all green and blue infrastructure in England. and can allow you to sort of start to overlay different layers of information. So it's got all green and blue infrastructure, and this slide particularly looks at sort of how that can then you can hone into particular data sets within the tool to address that flood risk issue that we were looking at. So you can pull up the data layer on Greater Manchester flood risk areas, then potentially use data in the tool which looks at access to green and blue space. Pull that up and start to understand, okay, where do people have access to green space within 15 minutes walk from home? Where do they not have access to green and blue space? So you can start to identify where the gaps are in terms of access to green and blue space. And then you could overlay those two data layers. So you could start to identify, okay, well, where could we look at nature recovery projects that could really help to address both flood risk and also access to nature and access to green and blue space for all the health and well-being benefits that brings. So starting to deliver multiple benefits through different green and blue spaces. So if you move on to the next slide, Krista. Secondly, partnerships are absolutely essential for delivering nature recovery, both nationally and locally. And there's a few networks that are specific to LNRS. So we've got the Responsible Authority Network. So that's a forum of LNRS responsible authorities collaborating across to really help to prepare high quality local nature recovery strategies. And we've got the Nature Recovery Network Delivery Partnerships. So that was launched in 2020, and that's a broad network of cross-sectoral organisations who worked together to deliver the Nature Recovery Network. We've also, so if you want to express interest in becoming a sort of a nature recovery delivery network partner, then do get in touch with us to let us know about that. And the next slide just shows some of the broad partnerships that are overseen by that partnership management group, and some of the representatives from different sectors, government organisations that are feeding into this and providing that strategic leadership, and can help us to unblock issues at a local level as well. So yeah, do let us know if you're interested in engaging with that. And we also have people like business sector representatives. So, for example, the Council for Sustainable Business is represented on this group, and the financial sector, the Green Finance Institute. So, and representatives from NFU, Water UK, Local Government Association, House Building Home Builder Federation, all of those kind of sit on this group. So, potentially help to unblock some of the issues you might be finding as well. If you move on to the next slide, Natural England also has a dedicated sort of local teams that can help to deliver the Nature Recovery Network, and we've got senior advisors who are leading on LNRS development in our area teams. We are also supporting sort of multi-partner nature projects at local and regional level. So those are happening as well, and helping to deliver sort of really significant outcomes, particularly at that kind of landscape scale, that can help to restore wildlife for nature and also for people to enjoy. So those are some of the support that Natural England can provide, and just coming into land now with a couple of examples. So the Lost Wetlands slide here talks about the work that is being done in our Cheshire to Lancashire area team, for example, where we are working to extend over 5,000 hectares of project to reclaim, restore, re-wet and mosaic of wetland habitats in South Greater Manchester and North Cheshire, and that network of wetland habitats will be used to restore and improve connectivity for wildlife, but it will also engage young people, provide greater connection to wetlands on their doorsteps, and is also helping to play into that management around flood risk, and to provide those nature-based solutions. And finally, we've got a bit of an urban greening example on this slide, which just highlights the project that was delivered, that is being worked up and developed in partnership with Natural England, National Lottery Heritage Fund and National Trust, which is looking at a national urban landscape accreditation that will help to deliver the 15 minutes to nature commitment, and really aims to mobilise transformational outcomes in urban greening through public, private and philanthropic sources. And that's a piece of work that we're just working up and developing at the moment, and we'll be coming out to consult with you on that over the next few months, heading towards the summer. So just a final slide here, just to sum up. Really, I think there's lots of tools kind of out there, and using them in combination can really help to bring the Nature Recovery Network to life, and really helping to sort of show how each of these tools can be used for, to the right tool for the right job, to help us to deliver those big challenges we've got around sort of biodiversity loss, around climate change, and around health and well-being inequalities, and using those in the right way to tackle the right issues, and providing that sort of focus then for moving it into that full delivery of the Nature Recovery Network. So that's all I was going to say. Thank you very much for your time. It's been really helpful to be part of this session. Thanks, Krista. Back to you. Oh, you're on mute, Krista. You're on mute, Krista.
Yeah, there we go. Sorry about that, Claire. So that wouldn't happen in person. So yeah, thanks very much. There's obviously a lot going on there, lots in terms of tools, and we had a follow-up roundtable session as part of the roadshow events that provide an opportunity for local authority delegates to actually discuss, how are they kind of using tools and support to engage with other services. So we had some really great discussion. I'm just going to stop sharing my slides here, and hopefully it should just be us two on the screen now, I think. Is that right?
Yeah,
I think
that's
so.
right.
So so what I was just going to kind of come on to is there's obviously lots of discussion as part of the round table, and throughout the day. And I suppose a couple of key kind of highlights came up. Was one about, there's a lot of work that's going into producing lots of different tools and data layers, and you kind of included on one of your slides there some of the key tools. And I suppose if you've got someone that's perhaps just starting out, not really necessarily a GIS expert, where do they turn to? What's a good, how do they kind of go about this? And actually, is there a particular kind of tools or tool that you would kind of say, actually, kind of just learn how to use this one? It's actually quite user friendly. Is there anything particularly that kind of just comes to mind really in terms of those range of tools?
Yeah, I mean, I think the green infrastructure mapping database, which I picked up on briefly, I think is a really accessible sort of data tool. It's really easy to sort of click into, and you can zoom in, zoom out, put different layers in and on and off. But essentially it does cover all green and blue infrastructure across England, and also includes socioeconomic data as well, which I think is really relevant to local authorities. So, kind of understanding that join up between, where there is nature, where there's access to nature, where the gaps are, where the people are, and where, you can look to really deliver multiple benefits through that. So that tool for me is a really key one. And could really, you're also able to download, individual data sets and add your local data to that as well. So, it can be refined, and sort of, just changed and tweaked to add local data into that.
Yeah, and and there's lots of kind of open source data out there as well, and I suppose where local authorities do have a central kind of GIS team that are kind of supporting functions across their authorities.
Mm.
I suggest again it's that they're aware of these data sets and how those data sets can be in terms of actually downloaded and used to
Mm.
inform engagement with other services, and other services kind of using that data to actually inform their priorities. So
Absolutely, yeah, and I mean, those are that's the sort of data that can help to inform the evidence base of local plans, for example, as well. So, there's some really helpful sort of sources of data, and I think probably it's just a case of having a look, having a play around, seeing what seems to be most helpful in terms of addressing the gaps that you've got in data at the local authority level. Some local authorities have a really comprehensive data sets, and actually these national data sets may not contribute too much more to those. So but there are maybe other areas where actually there are some of the national data sets really do pick up on gaps that you've got at a local authority level that are helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And I think on one of the kind of secondary was the kind of relationship with the toolkit and the local nature recovery strategies. And what we heard is that there's a real potential to kind of go beyond in terms of kind of looking at a spatial plan for nature, but to look at how we can look at opportunities to address wider benefits, whether that's carbon, flooding. And I'm just wondering how
Mm.
LNRS can be used alongside other data sets and other strategies like GI strategies to help kind of deliver those wider benefits.
Yeah, I mean, we've been thinking about this as well, particularly that sort of relationship between local nature recovery strategies, GI strategies. I think LNRSs tend to be at that sort of higher tier authority level. GI strategies perhaps more at that kind of lower tier level. So it feels as though they could both, inform each other. GI strategies often do think about, the multifunctionality, consider sort of access to nature as well, and the benefits for people as well as for nature. So certainly in my head, I think, the really sort of forward-thinking local nature recovery strategies will be incorporating this kind of multifunctional thinking, and will be, looking at how they can make the best use of those new areas or enhanced areas for nature recovery to deliver those kind of wider benefits. Because that's how we face it. We've got a finite resource here, and we've got finite land, and we need to help it to work to deliver the best we can for both nature and for people. So yeah, we absolutely need to make that join
Definitely.
up. Mm.
And I think again, as you kind of mentioned before, there's a clear role there for local plans as well. So yeah, kind of the third kind of bit was just really that there's lots of projects out there that Natural England are supporting, kind of nature recovery projects, and each of the presentations that were delivered at the toolkit events, whether that's Manchester, Birmingham, London, actually focused on kind of regional examples there. And I suppose there's lots of projects that are being kind of delivered out there. Where can people kind of actually go to, kind of, because again what we want to do is build on that success and that learning, and kind of keep on kind of building on that. Where can people kind of find out in terms of those case studies and examples? Where's some good kind of signposting?
Yeah, so there's some great material on the Green Infrastructure Framework web portal, Natural England's Green Infrastructure Framework website. Yeah, there's if you go into that site and click on, I think there's a section in there on case studies. There's a couple of examples on there of the sort of the ways that different places are using and working on their sort of local nature recovery strategies and access to nature. So I think there's examples of Mayfield Park. There's one around the how Derby City Council are working with the wildlife trusts there to do a big urban nature recovery space. So there's some really nice examples of, that can be picked up from there. But I think there's also a space for us to be kind of sharing this stuff around, using our own networks, feeding those into ADEPT, local government associations, so we can start to build up a really good examples of good practice and where this is working really well, because actually we'll generate a momentum around that as we start to share that good practice across the sector.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as we progress, with the toolkit and start to kind of roll that out, we're keen to kind of, again, kind of get that learning captured, and, whether that's through talking heads or other case studies, to actually understand how other authorities are actually, engaging with other services, and, the kind of hooks that are there that actually kind of enable other services to understand why nature, is relevant to them, and those kind of business cases of how they've kind of actually kind of delivered savings and other types of benefits. So as we go through the toolkit, we'll be kind of capturing those as well, and kind of sharing those as we go along. So I'm going to wrap up there, Claire. That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much, so much for your time, and I'll stop recording now, and thank you. That's absolutely brilliant. Cheers.
Yeah, thanks, Krista.